Antaro Adun, we are the Protoss, guided by the glory of the Kala's light, gifted with lifespans that may seem immortal to other races, graced with technological marvels that would leave onlookers in bewilderment. Long have we watched the stars, and long have we avoided contact with lesser species. That is, until the Zerg came. This new nightmarish entity consumes without mercy, turning whole systems into a cesspool of infestation, full of unthinking horrors. The Overmind has somehow gained knowledge of our homeworld, and for the first time in its peaceful existence, Ire is besieged. Our once beautiful glowing homeworld burns at the touch of the Zerg. Entire armies of our most gifted warriors are consumed before our very eyes. Our role in this conflict is the role of an executor. Much like a commander, we have armies to govern and enemies to defeat. Although this is not mentioned until the Brood War expansion, we are a Protoss named Artanis. We were a gifted student of the Templar caste as we were growing up and were mentored by Tassadar, who is now missing. We were the youngest Templar in history to be appointed the rank of Praetor, and now, in this dark hour, at the young age of 262, we are anointed the rank of Executor, due to the disappearance of Tassadar. We are welcomed into the war room by Judicator Aldaris.
Antaro Adun, Executor. I am Judicator Aldaris.
A Judicator is someone who represents the will of the Conclave. The Judicator caste tend to avoid combat and focus more on being statesmen and religious leaders to the rest of the Protoss. Aldaris was previously the Judicator to Executor Tassadar, and was the voice behind the planetary purges that took place in the Terran sector. Now that Tassadar has decided to spare the infested worlds and is in the wind, the Conclave has promoted us out of necessity, and assigned one of its most esteemed members to our cause.
I have been sent by the Conclave to serve and counsel you. The former Executor, Tassadar, was commanded to halt the Zerg progress in the Terran sector by burning the infested human worlds. Unfortunately, he disregarded his orders and attempted to destroy the Zerg while sparing the Terrans from the flame. Clearly, Tassadar has failed us. You must not.
Aldaris informs us that the outpost of Antioch is in need of reinforcement. This ancient province houses the citadel of the Executor and is a place of great cultural significance, as the Road of Remembrance leads out of the province to a Xel'Naga temple and is used to honor fallen Protoss as they are brought down the road.
The Conclave has dictated that our first priority is to strengthen our defenses. You must reinforce our outpost in Antioch and make certain that the province does not fall to the Zerg. Your old comrade, Praetor Phoenix, will meet you there and assist you in this endeavor.
Currently, Antioch is being defended by an old friend of ours, Praetor Phoenix, a warrior of legendary esteem. Though not much older than we are, Phoenix has established himself as one of the most accomplished Protoss warriors in history, even going so far as to have his own version of Die Hard happen, wherein, during the celebration of the Cosmos season, Phoenix and several other hostages were locked in a Conclave tower by Nerazim rebels. And after engineering an escape, and at one point walking barefoot across a room of broken Khadarian crystal shards, Phoenix slew the terrorists and their warlord with their own blades. The forces at Antioch have reached a critical point in their defense, and have run out of resources to construct new probes to fortify their base. The Protoss military tech is different from our experiences in the Zerg and Terran campaigns. They construct robotic helpers known as probes.
What do you need? No.
Hovering little guys who are able to warp in new structures. Protoss structures, besides the pylon, assimilator, and nexus, must be warped within the influence of a pylon. Pylons are able to provide additional supply to our army. However, if a pylon is destroyed, any buildings no longer affected by their influence will shut down until another pylon is built in its place. Also, all Protoss structures and units are protected by a plasma shield, a rechargeable buffer that provides minimal resistance to attacks. We push through to Antioch with much-needed resources and a contingent of zealots and dragoons. Zealots are the primary force of our military might.
What man calls? He saw too. She house. I long for combat. Entaru Adun. All for the Empire. Doom to all who threaten the homeworld.
Fanatics who pursue the enemies of the Conclave and deliver their righteous fury with their own twin wrist-mounted psionic blades. The Dragoons are hulking quadrupedal assault walkers.
I am needed. Galaxas. Receiving. Awaiting instructions. Unauthorized transmission. Incorrect protocol. Drop your weapon. You have 15 seconds to comply. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
They wield a phase disruptor that is a similar weapon used by the photon cannon, which is the Protoss's automatic defense structure. Dragoons are piloted by the ruined bodies of veteran Templars who have nearly died in their service to Ire. Through this implant into the shell of a Dragoon, they are able to serve the glory of Ire once more. Phoenix fills us in on the current situation.
Executor Entaru Adun, it is good to see you once more upon the field of battle. Alas, all of our probes were lost in the last Zerg attack, and we had no resources with which to replace them.
They had run out of minerals and could not build any other probes to fortify Antioch. After we arrive and get some probes up and running, we set down some photon cannons and warp in further troops.
Your command? I hunger for battle. Your command? Executor? I fear no enemy, for the Kala is my strength. I fear not death, for our strength is eternal.
Protoss forces are the most expensive in Starcraft in terms of cost and supply, but they make up for this by being the mightiest forces in the Caprulu sector. Once we have purchased some unit upgrades from the Forge and extended the Dragoons' attack range from the Cybernetics Core, we gather a squad of Zealots and Dragoons and make our move on the Zerg.
Lockpile confirmed. He saw June instructions. I long for combat. My life for ire. What man calls? What man calls? Protoss. Warriors have engaged the enemy. Sheer house. Honor guide me.
This particular group of Zerg are a part of the Tiamat brood, led by Dagoth. And as we move our units into attack, the Zerg send in several overlords to drop units behind our defensive lines.
Immediately. As you will. For hire, Nakbakala. As you will. Upgrade complete.
Phoenix is able to almost single-handedly fend off this attack as our troops on the front lines decimate the Zerg forces to our north.
Thus I serve. I long for combat instructions.
Once defeated, Phoenix offers a comment of respect in regards to the Zerg, for they are the mightiest foe that the Protoss have ever encountered.
You know, Executor, although we too have marched across hundreds of worlds together, I never imagined that we would be fighting on Ire. The Zerg are indeed worthy foes.
The province of Antioch has been secured, its defenses bolstered under our leadership. The time has come to mount an offensive against the nearby Hive cluster. Judicator Aldaris joins us along with our comrade Praetor Phoenix. Aldaris praises our recent victory and says that we've even restored some of his previously shaken faith. Tassadar's recent desertion has wounded his trust in the Templar caste, and it will take many victories to restore it.
Entaro Adun, Executor. Your defense of Antioch has restored my faith in the Templar caste.
But just as Aldaris begins lecturing us, who better to interrupt than our old mentor and Gigachad himself, Tassadar?
I admit that Tassadar's desertion had shaken my faith.
Indeed, Aldaris.
He chides Aldaris for his lack of faith in his own people, shutting Aldaris down before he can reply further.
I would hope that the Judicator would put more faith in their Templar brethren.
Tassadar, where have you been?
Be silent, Judicator.
Tassadar begins revealing the truth of his absence, explaining that after the Zerg left Tarsonis, he followed his instincts to investigate their whereabouts. In doing so, he was summoned to Char via an unknown psionic communication. Of course, we know this was actually Kerrigan reaching out to Raynor and Minsk while she was in her cocoon.
There is no time to waste, and I have much to tell you. As you know, the Zerg vanished after the fall of the Terran world of Tarsonis, and though the Conclave bid me return home, I was compelled to remain. A powerful psionic call drew my attention to a remote barren world named Char.
Upon arriving on the infested world, he encountered none other than the exiles of the Templar caste, the Dark Templar.
Apparently the call was answered by others as well, for upon Char, I encountered those who were once our brethren, the Dark Templar.
Consorting with the Fallen Ones is heresy.
Enough!
Tassadar continues, ignoring Aldaris' shrill whining, explaining that if a Cerebrate is slain, then the brood they control falls apart. No longer able to function without the center of its hive mind, by removing the beast's head, the rest of the body will die. And so our focus should be on destroying the Zerg Cerebrates.
Hear me, Executor, for I have learned much from the Dark Templar Prelate, Zeratul. The Overmind controls its minions through agents called Cerebrates. Strike down the Cerebrates, and the swarms will surely fall. Executor, Tassadar may be right. If you can keep the Zerg occupied, my force may be able to penetrate their perimeter and slay the abomination.
Phoenix sees the wisdom in this plan of attack and volunteers to move his forces in for a pincer attack close in on the Cerebrit from behind, while we distract the Zerg forces on the main front. Aldaris, however, still does not trust Tassadar. Suspicious that he has consorted with the reviled Dark Templar, and demands that Tassadar return to Ire to face judgment for his transgressions.
I pray we can trust you, Tassadar. Already I can sense the taint of the Fallen One's influence on your mind. You must return to Ire at once.
My concern is for the safety of Ire, not the judgments of the Conclave. I will return when the time is right.
Tassadar disregards this request like an elephant disregarding an ant, for his focus is ironclad, winning this war and sparing his people from the horrors of the Zerg. His judgment by the Conclave will have to wait. Our forces during this mission begin deployed on some high ground with 2 separate choke points accessing our base, and we have little more than 15 minutes to prepare our defense while Phoenix's forces get into position. We assess our forces without delay, and while our analysis shows that we have no new units, we have been granted a new defensive structure, the shield battery. This arachnoid building deploys its energy reserves to refill the plasma shields of any nearby units. A useful tool for keeping our defenses from being overrun from the Zerg while still keeping them in the fight. The downside, however, is that the shield battery's recharge time is a bit long, so its benefits must be used wisely. The battle commences, and without hesitation, the Zerg begin sending scouting parties to probe our base and try to punch holes in our defenses.
Awaiting instructions. My life for Ire.
Their attempts are meager and easily routed, but we know that besieging their fortifications will take a mighty force. Our work is cut out for us, and we must assemble a decisive force before Phoenix arrives. Probing south, we find a resource-rich plateau with only 1 choke point needing to be defended. With haste at our heels, we set up our base there, along with an armament of photon cannons for its protection. Once Phoenix arrives to flank the Zerg base, our army is ready for action.
I long for combat. Executor in position. I await your orders.
Phoenix has even graced us with a few Reavers to bolster our forces. These hulking cybernetic bug boys are mobile factories, capable of unleashing skittering hordes of explosive domination. And although their kamikaze scarabs cost resources to produce, they're well worth the cost for the ability to eradicate enemy forces from well outside their own range. Armed and ready, we commence our pincer offensive.
What now calls? Have engaged the enemy. She house. Executor, as you will. I long for combat.
Our forces crash into their sunken colonies like a raging typhoon, with Hydralisks, Zerglings, and Mutalisks spilling forth after we rattle the Zerg hive. Phoenix's forces charge into the exposed Zerg base from the north, utilizing his Reavers to lay waste to their tech structures from afar.
I long for combat. Have engaged the enemy. Executor, immediately! Executor, for hire, immediately! For hire! Make use of me. What now calls? I am needed. The warriors have engaged the enemy.
After reducing the Zerg hive to a pulpy, flesh-covered soup, we see that there's one other small choke point in the back of the base, heavily laden with more sunken colonies. Eradicating the colonies leads us through the narrow pass to find our prize, the Cerebrit. The Balrog brood, which we have been doing battle with this mission, is in service of the Cerebrit known as Gorn. Of course, we would never learn whatever the filth calls itself, as Phoenix brutally strikes down the creature in the name of ire without hesitation. Who better to slay the enemy commander than our mightiest warrior? All that's left now is to wait for Judicator Aldaris' orders and the will of the Conclave, a time during which Phoenix takes it upon himself to behold the brood's promised destruction after the Cerebrit's defeat.
I will remain behind and observe the effects of our attack. Return to the Citadel. I shall notify you when the brood becomes erratic.
We pray and hope that Adun be with us, and that the faith we have placed in Tassadar will not lead us to ruin. It has only been a couple hours since Phoenix slew the wretched Cerebrit known as Gorn on our last mission, and now Phoenix comes with dire news.
Executor, I bring news most dire. The Cerebrit that we thought we had killed has arisen again. The creature's battered form was reincarnated despite the considerable damage we inflicted upon it. Even now, the Cerebrit drives its brood in preparation for their next offensive.
Now that we've seen firsthand how our weapons have little to no effect on the Cerebrits, we must devise a new plan of attack. Our faith in Tassadar is once again in question, and since his communication to us with his plan of defeating the Cerebrits, we have not heard from him since.
It is as I feared. It was folly to believe Tassadar could be trusted. The Conclave will not soon forget his wanton betrayal. Nevertheless, we must stand resolute, for attacking defenseless Cerebrits is not the way of true Protoss warriors. We shall overcome the entire swarm with the might and the fury that is our heritage.
Aldaris suggests that we bring our full might down upon the remaining Zerg forces desecrating the sacred ground of Ire. At the moment, we have the situation under control at Antioch, and Phoenix is ever vigilant, monitoring the tactical movements of the newly revived Cerebrit.
Executor, we shall lead our main strike force to the province of Sion, which has fallen to the Zerg. It's time the Zerg felt the wrath of the Sons of Ire. Praetor Phoenix will remain here with a small detachment and guard Antioch from any further assaults.
Nearby, the province of Sion has become overrun by Zerg forces, and while this province does not have the cultural significance that Antioch has, The Zerg presence there is substantial, and yet there appear to be no Cerebrits in that area. If we can purge these abominations from Scion, it will make it all that much harder for the Zerg to retake the province.
Adun be with you, Executor. Bring swift death to the enemies of Ire.
Phoenix gives us his blessing without pause. He has seen our generalship firsthand. He knows we will bring swift death to Ire's enemies wherever we go. But the question yet remains, why did Tassadar give us faulty information about the Cerebrits? Why was he so confident that striking down the Zerg commanders would cause the Brood to destroy itself in its confusion? It is not like our mentor to lead us astray, and in doing so, Aldaris has only become that much more vindictive towards him. Doubt lingers overhead, but our time to confront Tassadar and find the truth will come. For now, the province of Scion demands our attention. Once on the battlefield, we find our position is deeply exposed. Gaps in our defenses are on all sides of our compound, so reinforcing our perimeter is paramount. Thankfully, Aldaris and the Conclave have granted us access to additional units to bolster our forces. We can now warp in 2 additional structures: the Citadel of Adun, which comes with the technology leg enhancements for use by our zealots. With these cybernetic upgrades to their running ability, they can now sprint across the battlefield at unbelievable speed, able to close the distance on our enemies with terrifying efficiency.
Thus I upgrade complete. Honor guide me. For Adun. Kaokola.
In addition, we can now warp in the Stargate, enabling us to finally conquer the skies with Protoss aerial units. The first piece of our new Air Force is the Scout.
Shogun. Standing by. Contact. Signal unstable. Psionic link anticipated. Adjusting neural transmission. Self-referential inhibitors re-engaged. Awaiting command.
The Scout, while being incredibly expensive, serves as a powerful anti-air unit. While it's outfitted with only standard health and armor, and tends to fall a bit short in terms of damage against ground forces and flight speed, which later we will get a booster upgrade to the Scout's flight, but that happens later. The Scout makes up for it with a battery of devastating anti-air missiles that allow it to dominate the skies. Our presence is discovered almost immediately, and both Zerg hordes are soon upon us. Our foes this time are the Balrog brood, still overseen by the Cerebrit Gorn, who we failed to kill in our last mission, and the Tiamat brood, commanded by the Cerebrit Dagoth. Having routed Dagoth from Antioch, and after the beatdown we laid upon Gorn, their lust for vengeance fuels this renewed offensive. Surprising no one, they waste no time in testing our defenses. We'll need to take the fight to them. Before we bring the hurt to these abominations, we will need to secure additional resources. And as we scout out on the battlefield, we find a massive cache of minerals way over on the opposite side of the battlefield. Sending out an expeditionary force, we're eventually able to set up a formidable outpost to secure the area's riches. Our stores heavy with minerals and Vespene gas, the time is ripe for us to make our move on Cerebrit Gorn's forces. His force is centered in the northeast portion of our area, and his base nestled safely within an ancient ruin. Seeing as how the base only has 2 entrances, Gorn has saturated his base with anti-air defenses in the belief that our forces won't be able to penetrate the base's choke points. How wrong he is. We drive deep into his base on foot, punching through the choke points and annihilating his defenses. Our success against Gorn's army provides us with an excellent opportunity to take Cerebrate Dagoth by surprise, now that we now have access to powerful air units. When we first encountered the Tiamat brood, we had only just been appointed to Executor, with only ground forces at our disposal. Perhaps, we speculate, Dagoth has only prepared for an attack on the ground, thinking we are still grounded. Taking the plunge, we order our fleet of scout ships to rush Dagoth's hive. The surprise attack pays off tremendously, with Dagoth's base protected only by a mass of sunken colonies and ground forces.
Homeland calls. Engage the enemy. Command. I'm waiting command. Purpose acknowledged. Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
Our scout fleet blackens the sky above his base, and while the scouts' photon blasters fail to pack any real punch, with enough of them raining down uninhibited, the Zerg will die all the same. Our ground troops then charge in, knocking out anything equipped with the ability to target our scouts. Soon, our control of the skies is absolute. Our zealots and dragoons bring their structures to ruin once their defenses are weakened, and it becomes only a matter of time before Dagoth is also ousted from the province of Sion. Yet our victory is short-lived. Before we can savor the taste of it, Phoenix sends word that Antioch is under siege by a titanic Zerg force.
Executor! Antioch is under attack by overwhelming Zerg forces.
Praetor, you must hold your position for as long as possible. Fight on, brave Phoenix, and know that the gods watch over you. Entaro Adun.
The situation must be dire, or a proud warrior like Phoenix would not have requested aid otherwise. From the sounds of it, Antioch must have run out of holy hand grenades. Aldaris gives Phoenix a sole directive: to keep up the fight for as long as possible, or at least until help arrives. How could it be possible for one who carries such honor to fall against such vile, wretched creatures. Shortly after our deep strike to purge the Zerg from the province of Sion, Antioch was overrun by a deadly counteroffensive, and in his struggle to deny the mindless hordes of their prize, our comrade, Phoenix, has fallen in battle. His honor as a son of Ire enshrined in a true warrior's death, we would grieve for our lost brother, but Judicator Aldaris allows us no reprieve before demanding our service in another mission.
Executor, I know that you were reluctant to leave Ire in this dark hour, and that you still grieve for the loss of your comrade, Phoenix. But remember that he lived and died as a Templar. He has reached the Kala's end. There is no greater glory than that.
Aldaris offers us his counsel, along with his condolences for Phoenix's tragic loss. Despite our sorrow, he offers us some reprieve by reminding us that Phoenix was a proud warrior. He perished in the line of duty, a proud son of Ire, defiant in the face of relentless horror. He knows that this is the way he would have wanted to go, and we know he speaks the truth. But despite this, we are still made all the lesser for his loss. Aldaris asks us to direct our thoughts to the bigger picture, to understand the Conclave's motivation. The Conclave, seeing our outmaneuvering of the Zerg at Sion, is of the opinion that we are in fact winning this war. They could not be more mistaken. Only a few days have passed, and Ire remains under siege. The Zerg swarms tainting its land and devastating its people with each hour that goes by. But rather than deploy us in defending Ire's people, the Conclave has issued us a fool's order to go with our recent promotion to the rank of Executor.
We Judicator are called to look beyond such matters, to ensure the safety and future of our people. It is not the Zerg, but the rogue Tassadar, who represents the greatest threat to us now.
We are to hunt down the rogue Templar, Tassadar, and bring him to justice.
If he is allowed to spread the Dark Templar's tainted influence to Ire, all will be lost. We will find him and bring him to judgment.
Despite the questionable nature of this command, our duty to the Conclave remains, whether we agree with their leadership or not. In our last communication with Tassadar, he mentioned being called to the Ashen World of Char. Perhaps we'll find him there.
Tassadar claimed that this world was abandoned by the Zerg just prior to the invasion of Ire. Yet I still sense a lingering darkness here. Be prepared for anything, Executor. If there are still Zerg on this world, then they must surely know of our arrival.
It is only a matter of time before the Zerg will be defeated. But Tassadar's influence remains a subversive, more insidious threat. Furthermore, the heresy of the Dark Templar, left unchecked, could cause the whole of Protoss society to fall into ruin. What's more, Judicator Aldaris has sensed a deeper evil lurking, growing within the shadows of this war. Despite the Zerg supposedly abandoning Char to invade Ire, bloodlust still haunts this planet, leading him to believe that the Zerg still remain, in some form. Unease can only beneath the umbrage of the unseen, but even so, we must find our courage. We are to make landfall into the corpse of this world, and seek an audience with our lost mentor. Tassadar's exact location is unknown. Despite our contact with him a few days ago, our only chance at finding him is the hope that he is still in this general area. However, we have been granted access to the battlefield deployment of the High Templars, a small miracle and symbol of the Conclave's faith in us.
I heed thy call. Steed thy bidding. Zerach. Your thoughts betray you. see you have an appetite for destruction. And you've learned to use your illusion. But I find your lack of control disturbing.
High Templars stand as paragons of honor and respect, the highest of Protoss society. Where zealots are driven by righteous fury in the thick of melee combat, High Templars embrace their psionic abilities, heightened from years of intense psychic training within Aire's sacred archives. They can tear their enemies apart with a psionic storm, or befuddle others with psychic hallucinations. If the battle calls for it, however, 2 High Templars may also conjoin together to transform into a terrifying being of pure energy, the Archon.
The purging is complete. Power overwhelming. Protoss, we burn. We need focus. We burn. It all looks so different on this side. Break on through. It's beautiful. It should have sent a poet.
Even the most veteran foes tremble against these burning phantoms of Aire's wrath and the devastating energy that they can unleash. Unfortunately, their physical constitution is weak if attacked directly, but their formidable plasma shielding is strong enough to ward most attacks while they devastate their targets with a focused psionic blast. Once we depart our landing zone, we are faced with a fork in the road. Left is law, and so we go left, tactically deploying our lone High Templar psionic storm to tear the Zerg apart on the way.
It shall be done. Still done. Make use of me. Initiating. Time. Commencing.
Eventually, our LZ far behind us, we discover an abandoned Protoss outpost in a state of disrepair. And at its heart, we find none other than our quarry, whom we haven't locked eyes with since before the Zerg entered the Caprulu sector. Executor Tassadar.
Aldaris, Executor, how is it that you've come here? I was about to abandon all hope of rescue.
I have come to arrest you and bring you home to Aire to stand trial.
Arrest me? Aire burns at the touch of the Zerg. You travel all this way to arrest me?
Don't let it get to you, man. This happened to me once.
Who is this human, Tassadar?
The name's Jim Raynor, pal, and I won't be talked down to by anybody. Not even a Protoss.
Amusing.
Curiously, he is not alone, accompanied by, of all things, a Terran. Judicator Aldaris immediately announces our intentions to arrest the Rogue Templar, which wounds and surprises Tassadar, who is surprised to see us here. He's well aware that our presence here means legions of Protoss are falling to the Zerg in our absence from Aire. He pleads with us for reprieve, requesting we instead aid him in finding the Dark Templar prelate, Zeratul.
Tassadar, your taste in companions grows ever more inexplicable. Executor, prepare to take Tassadar into
Executor,
custody.
wait. I do not know what they have told you about me. But what I have done for Aire. Help me find Zeratul and his Dark Templar. They alone can defeat the Overmind Sererits. Once we have won, I shall gladly submit myself to the judgment of the Conclave.
And chides Judicator Aldaris for his childish disrespect of this enigmatic Protoss leader.
Unthinkable. You presume that we would side with the Dark Ones as you have? You have gone quite mad, Tassadar.
You shall speak of them with respect, Aldaris. Executor, there is much that I can explain to you. If only you'll help me find Zeratul.
We can't know for sure if we can trust Tassadar and this odd Terran, Jim Raynor, but there is one thing for certain. No one is escaping this hellhole if we can't make it back to the landing zone.
How may I help? Your will? Yes, Executor? Speak quickly, Executor. I don't have time for games. I was Executor long before you, so do not try my patience.
One of our High Templars senses a psionic disturbance while monitoring the battlefield to secure our escape.
Surrounded.
A nearby hive cluster has stirred and will soon be upon us. We must prepare for battle if we wish to make it out of here in one piece. Wasting no time, we put our probes to work constructing a new Templar archives, giving us much needed upgrades for our psionic spellcasters. Our strategy is to escape, not to fortify, so we remain frugal in our spending, setting up only the most necessary automated defenses, and warping in a few reinforcements to our party. We return via the path we had just traveled to reach Tassadar, but find that the Zerg swarm has infested our route home. A brutal fight is upon us, but by utilizing Tassadar's abilities, in formation with the other High Templar, the tides of battle shift in our favor, allowing us to break through to our ship.
Yes, Executor? For Adun. Of course.
I have returned.
For Adun. Tarakala.
Isatu. Thus I serve.
The warriors have engaged the enemy.
I long for combat. Honor guide me.
Go ahead, Commander.
Instructions.
Tarakala.
House. Gaokola. Honor guide me. Gaokola. For Adun. Honor guide me. For Adun. Honor guide me. Gaokola. I long for combat. Isatu. Zera. Steep thy bidding. House. Input command. We are under attack.
Anytime you're ready.
What now? House. Receiving. You think as I do?
Will? For Adun. Tarakala.
Kalados. Commencing.
How may I help? It shall be done. For Adun. Tarakala. Of course.
I am needed. Galossos. Receiving. Awaiting instructions. Transmitted for vengeance. Confirmed. Initiated for vengeance. You think as I do. My plan is set. Some Kaladas heed thy call. My plan is set.
Your will?
House. Gaokola.
Yes, Executor? Of course. For Adun.
House. Gaokola. Thus I serve.
Yes, Executor? For Adun. Tarakala. For Adun.
Isatu.
The warriors have engaged the enemy.
Tassadar thanks us for the rescue, hoping that we will find Zeratul, and that with his assistance, we will find a way to save Aiur.
You have my thanks, Executor. Now let us find Zeratul and speed our way home.
Hope is not yet lost for those in Kala's embrace. We must do anything and everything we can to defend our homeworld, even if it means consorting with a Dark Templar. Adun be with us. Our hours since the last mission have been spent in pensive contemplation. Our mission on Char was to arrest Tassadar without hesitation. But his dedication to his cause, even in the face of exile and persecution by his own people, has caused us to question the wisdom of the Conclave and their motivations. His words chisel a crack of doubt within our conscience, splitting our loyalty in two. In the end, a choice half made is no choice at all. We cannot condemn Tassadar when he has only asked us for the patience to listen and learn. We must hear what Tassadar has to say, and once again we place our trust in him, not as a student deferring to a teacher, but as an old friend, a comrade, and a peer in the struggle to save our people. To this end, he has asked us to help him find the Dark Templar, the lost sons of Aiur, banished for the highest of crimes, heresy. Tassadar guides us as we descend from low orbit to the planet's surface, bringing us to the beacon which marks the location of the Dark Templar. The signal is being emitted from an abandoned Terran installation set within the razored crag of a jagged rock bed. Before we touch our vessel down to the surface, Judicator Aldaris hails us from Aiur, issuing us a stark warning.
Executor, by following Tassadar and attempting to rescue the Dark Templar, you have openly defied the will of the Conclave.
Our assisting in Tassadar's heresy is nothing less than suicide, and in doing so, we have doomed not only ourselves, but all those serving under our command.
Abandon this mad scheme now, and the Conclave may show you mercy.
The only choice of mercy we have is if we return to the Conclave now and beg for their forgiveness, or pity. Our damnation for this act is all but certain.
Don't let him control you, Executor.
Tassadar's conviction remains unshaken, as the voice of reason bringing light to this umbrage. He explains to us that the Conclave's true goal is not peace, but control.
The Judicator have long since steered the actions of the Templar to their own ends. It's time we acted of our own accord.
They desire to be nothing less than the sole authority of the Templar caste, subjecting all of Aiur to their will alone. Tassadar declares that the age of their tyranny has run its course. We, who have stained our hands in the bloody crucible of war, must become our own masters. We will see this war ended, he insists, guided by our own moral compass. His words ring true in our mind, and we can't help but agree with him. Aldaris seethes with disappointment at Tassadar's remarks.
Ah, Tassadar, have you fallen so far? To think that you were our brightest hope, our most beloved son. Now you are everything that we are not. You are lost to us.
Who was once the progeny of the Templar caste, a shining prodigy of what it means to be an executor. His favor has turned sour, his luster tarnished and rusted over in his eyes. Now he is just another lost cause, a lifeless puppet, foolish enough to cut its own strings once bound to the Conclave. But what is the Conclave's pride worth if its price is the survival of the Protoss race?
Not only have you damned yourself, but you have damned those who have followed you.
Such is the price for our race's salvation, Judicator. I have been here with the Dark Templar these last few months. While I helped them in their fight against the Zerg, I learned many of their secrets from the prelate, Zeratul.
Tassadar sees beyond the pettiness of present consequences. The salvation of our people is worth any price, and he would discard the mantle of any gilded honor in pursuit of that goal. survival above all else. Tassadar has been stranded on Char since Kerrigan began purging their forces from the planet, which is how he found refuge and even camaraderie with the Dark Templar. Zeratul, their leader, even offered his tutelage, instructing Tassadar in the Dark Templar's teachings. The power they embody themselves with is of the same essence as the force which sustains the Overmind and his Cerebrates. Thus, he explains, the Dark Templar are the best equipped to slay the Overmind once and for all. Aldaris sternly reminds us that the Cerebrate we slew for Tassadar was easily resurrected.
Apparently, the energies which empower the Dark Templar also course through the Overmind and its Cerebrates.
The same Cerebrates which you told us to destroy. Your advice was useless.
This, Tassadar explains, was only because the energies within Protoss weapons could not disrupt the Overmind's connection to its broods. Only the Dark Templar possessed that ability. The Zerg campaign confirmed this, as it was Zeratul who was able to slay Cerebrate Zaz during the Battle of Char. Zeratul was able to destroy not only the Cerebrate's body, but his very soul, and no living thing can be restored to life if it has lost its whole essence.
For the creature was reincarnated before our eyes.
Unfortunately, yes. Your attack on the Cerebrate failed because the energies that you wield are useless when used directly against the Overmind and its Cerebrates. Only the Dark Templar's power can truly harm the Zerg. That is why we must rescue Zeratul and return him to Ire.
Therefore, finding and rescuing Zeratul and his brethren is paramount. The key to the downfall of the Zerg and Ire's reclamation.
You were warned, Executor. The Conclave will not be pleased.
We touch down on the planet not far from the Terran installation's entrance. A sizable Zerg force has infested the area and will need to be removed before we can make our way inside. Once Tassadar and his escort of zealots make it to the entrance, we can then focus the rest of our forces on defending the area. For this mission, Tassadar has supplied us with schematics for a couple new structures. The robotics facility, along with the robotics support bay. The former grants us access to the shuttle. An invaluable aerial transport unit, vital to the success of this mission. The support bay offers an upgrade for the shuttle's flight speed, and crucial upgrades for a unit we have long awaited to get our hands on, since all the way back when Phoenix teased us with them in our second mission, the Reaver. I won't waste time explaining what these hulking roly-poly Beetleborgs do, as I've described it a few times in earlier videos, but the upgrades we receive for them enhance their scarabs with a massive damage increase and a doubling of their scarab capacity to a whopping 10 scarabs. Still, these big boys are incredibly slow, but thanks to the shuttle's upgraded engines, we can ferry them around to annihilate key targets across the battlefield. Zerg resistance to our advance is heavy and resilient, but the Queen of Blades' absence from the area should make our march to the Terran installation that much easier. The enemy attacks us from our southern flank, so we circumvent our army around their forces until we stumble upon some wayward Terran defenses, clad in white markings. Why does that sound familiar? Who else do we know that always has his hand in the oddities of Terran installations? Why, it's none other than Edmund Duke. And after destroying a single missile turret, the old fart demands an immediate ceasefire, promising swift retaliation if we do not yield.
Protoss Commander, this is General Edmund Duke of the Terran Dominion Armada. You are in violation of our airspace and have endangered human lives in your reckless attack against the Zerg. I order you to withdraw your ships immediately. If you fail to comply, I will not hesitate to open fire upon your vessels.
But Tassadar will not suffer the mulings of weak, fated old men.
General Duke, I am Tassadar, and you are well known to me. Whatever leniency I extended to you and your comrades before may have been in error. If you persist in halting our course, we will burn your pathetic fleet down to the last man.
I'm gonna have to assume that was a hostile response.
Our reply to General Duke is the coldest of verdicts.
How may I help? Tarakala!
Our word is our bond, and for the cost of a single photon cannon, we torch the good general's fleet to cinders. Nothing is left but ash, drifting lifelessly into the wind. With Duke's forces out of the way, we journey further east, extracting a mineral cache set behind some of the general's structures. He won't be needing them anymore. We ready our warriors with a newly established forward operating base before punching into the entrenched Zerg forces. Our scouts find an infiltration route for our shock troopers, with which they scatter the enemy defenses.
Have engaged the enemy. Upgrade complete. Your warriors have engaged the enemy. Honor guide me. Your warriors have engaged the enemy. We need focus. Your warriors have engaged the enemy. Standing by.
The ensuing disarray gives us an opportunity to safely escort Tassadar to the beacon, and so we do. Tassadar enters the installation, holding complete faith that we will defend the entrance and make ready our escape upon his return. We will not betray that trust, and lock down the area with as many defenses we can muster, even preparing ambushes in the off chance that the Terran return for a counterattack.
Hey, Sergeant! Sarge! Hey!
You will immediately tell me why you have called me from my desk, Private.
Protoss unit, Sarge! Coming through the South Pass! It looks broke!
Kill it!
Executor, I sense that Zeratul and his brethren are close by, but I have been unable to make contact with them. I fear they may be in grave danger. We must scour this area immediately and find the Dark Templar, lest they be overcome by the Zerg.
At last, we finally breached the infested Terran installation. The horrors that await us in these dark halls beset our courage at every turn. But Tassadar remains certain that Zeratul is nearby, and so we must press on. He must have been here for some time, and the Zerg forces we defeated outside must have been stationed there to prevent his escape. Despite our assessment of the situation, we do not yet know the extent of the Zerg infestation within this facility. We are blind men, wandering through the dark, but will rescue the Dark Templar all the same. The cold walls within the compound are eerie and unsettling. Beneath us, the floor is dilapidated and wet with ichor and slime. The Zerg have definitely been this way. Tassadar uses his Templar's psionic techniques to send out hallucinations to scout the area. In doing so, we find a few scattered Zerg, and even an infested Terran waiting for us at the entrance. Their color is familiar to us, no doubt the shade and hue of the Balrog brood, controlled by the Cerebrate Gorn. No doubt, Gorn intends to slay Zeratul, either because of tracking our mission, or at the Overmind's command. The ambitious Cerebrate has beaten us here, and hopes that he might crush two birds with one outpost. The main hall opens up into the first chamber, where we find countless Terran bodies, their remains crushed into the floor and painted across the room's steel walls. What slaughter could have taken place in here? Zeratul must have fled through here when there was no other option left. Much to our surprise, Terran Dominion survivors await in the next chamber.
Mind if we tag along?
While Emperor Minsk and his machinations, or his lapdog General Duke, are no allies of ours, we are relieved to find any living beings in this facility that are not Zerg. The surviving Marines join up with us in hopes of being rescued, bringing much-needed firepower to our meager force. More Terran bodies line the hallway in the opposite direction, and after dispatching more of Gorn's forces, even more Dominion survivors join our strike force.
Mind if we tag along?
Deeper and deeper we go, into the belly of the beast, facing yet more of Gorn's swarm, and a brood we've encountered prior on Char, the Jormungand brood, led by Cerebrate Erich. The Jormungand are responsible for sealing the installation's entrance, and were the initial Zerg forces we encountered before finding Tassadar and Jim Raynor. It's no surprise that his forces are here supporting Gorn. A hallway leading to the northwest section of the facility brings us to a teleporter, allowing us to beam in reinforcements from outside.
Teleportation field activated.
We probe yet deeper, now with a small squad of Marines at our back and a few more Protoss warriors in our vanguard. Following the scent of death and the trail of bodies stretching further within, one of our more astute Marines perks up, sensing a disturbance in the Force, and soon after that we are promptly ambushed.
Did you hear that?
Hydralisks slither out from hiding, and in the ensuing struggle, an infested Terran claims several of our warriors with its putrid suicidal explosion. Next comes a crossroads, and we choose the path to our left, or the camera's right, and find a holdout of Dominion Marines desperately trying to fight off a wave of Gorn's Zerglings.
We gotta move.
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
We stave off the attack with only minor casualties, but only a Dragoon and a host of terrified Marines are left to complete the rescue. We double back through the crossroads and take the opposite path from before. The eerie quiet is once again broken by a Marine sensing a disturbance in the Force.
What was that?
An infested Terran resurfaces within arm's reach of Tassadar. Moments before it can detonate, our Marines shoot it down in a spray of Gauss rifle fire. That was a close call. Every comrade we have left is precious, so we deploy Tassadar's hallucinations as scouts to discover another infested Terran blocking our path. It wastes its detonation chasing after an illusion, and we push out into another vast chamber. We take on a group of Hydralisks blocking our way while Tassadar finds a switch, opening a path to a nearby security room.
Executor, Tarakala.
Input command.
No doubt, Zeratul awaits inside. We advance back through the crossroads to go down the last remaining hallway, even though our instincts are screaming that terrors hide within. Another wave of illusions deployed, and we find not one, but two infested Terrans, and an accompaniment of auto turrets lining the walls. We lure the infested Terrans to detonate on our illusions once again, and then command our forces to sprint past the turrets.
How may I help? Of course. For Adun, Tarakala. Of course. Shall be done. For Adun, Tarakala.
Near the end of the hall, a third infested Terran awaits, but a gravely wounded Marine throws himself at the beast in an act of heroic sacrifice. Following this, the terrible AI for Dragoon pathing reveals itself as the true enemy of this mission. And the stupid bastards just cannot handle stairs for some reason.
Mitora. Commencing. For vengeance. Initiating. For vengeance. Mitora. Confirmed. Mitora Lokai. For vengeance.
May I help? Tarakala. How may I help?
Tassadar taps his remaining energy for more hallucinations to distract the rocket turrets outside the security door. Out of breath, he implores us for a moment to rest to recover his energy. Once rested, he summons more Dragoon hallucinations before we find a host of Zerg outside of a door, perhaps guarding its contents or trying to get inside. We trick the infested Terran in the group to detonate on our hallucination, which in turn decimates all the Zerglings present in a chain reaction. Then Tassadar cleans up the Hydralisks with a well-placed psionic storm. Behind this security door, we find the last of the Dominion survivors, a squad of Marines, complemented by a detachment of Firebats, and a Ghost for support. Tassadar needs another rest before continuing, which we happily oblige. Though nearly drained of energy at this point, his spellcasting is the only reason we have survived thus far. Once he's ready to move, we send out our Ghost to see what awaits us around the bend.
I'm all over it. I hear that. I'm gone. Never know what hit him. I hear that. I'm gone.
Our stealthed sniper doesn't make it too far before a drone of screeching and quick steps heralds a massive swarm of Zerglings advancing on our position. We hunker down behind the firebats and pour munitions into the horde, finishing them off with psionic storms. Yet another infested Terran rushes us from the rear of their ranks, but we catch it in a second, deftly placed psionic storm just before it can demolish our front lines. Only minor casualties, an outright miracle. Several empty cells await us down the hall, with one door refusing to open. Proceeding down the hallway, we find a final room in the back, guarded by several turrets. We knock out the turrets and activate the switch to open the final door of the prison cells. And at long last, we have arrived. And Tassadar finds himself face to face with the legendary prelate of the Dark Templar, Zeratul.
Done. For Adun, it shall be done. Greetings, Dark One. I have come to bring you home.
Greetings to you, mighty Tassadar. I knew that you would not forsake us. For in the time that you have spent with us, you have learned to value our ways and our methods. You have learned to channel our dark power, as well as that of your masters. And thus you alone have found completeness beyond the scope of the Kala. But I fear that the Conclave, in its pride, could never bring itself to welcome outcasts such as we.
Outcasts though you may be, it is your vision and courage that may yet save our homeworld from the swarm. I beg of you, Zeratul, return with us to Ire. Though they are petty and have in ignorance cursed your kind for generations, help me save our people.
Since our banishment long ago, we have never failed in our responsibility to Ire. Though it shall cause us great pain to see our homeland once more, we shall return with you, Tassadar. We will do what we can.
While grateful to us for coming to his aid, Zeratul laments that his people will be greatly pained to behold Ire once more. But, much like Tassadar, they will do what it takes to save even those who have condemned them. Our lives for Ire. With Zeratul and his brethren freed from the infested Terran installation on Char, we are free and cleared to evacuate to the surface and back into the relative safety of space. We are to return to Ire, and with our newfound allies and their secret techniques at our side, hope is high that we can finally end the Overmind and the nightmare his swarm has brought to our homeworld. As our journey nears its conclusion and we enter Ire's orbit, the Gantrathor's communications array picks up a hailing frequency. We are then greeted by the warmth of a familiar voice.
Greetings, Executor, and greetings to you, Tassadar. I am overjoyed to see you both return home in this dark hour. The Zerg have redoubled their efforts, and it seems that I have...
It can't be. The Executor told me of how you fell before the Zerg. How is it that you live and breathe?
Phoenix managed to survive the Battle of Antioch, defying the odds against him despite his grievous wounds, and wanting to ensure that he could have the strength to defend Ire to the very end. The Conclave submitted his body to be placed into the cybernetic shell of a Dragoon.
Well, after my unfortunate defeat, my ruined body was recovered by our brethren. I now reside within the cold robotic shell of a Dragoon.
This news grieves Tassadar. who laments that a warrior of such courage and honor should never have to be reduced to living within a mechanical prison.
Old friend, would that this never came to pass.
Nonsense! There is no shame in defeat, so long as the spirit is unconquered, and I am still able to serve Aya to a degree.
But Phoenix remains proud, reassuring Tassadar that his warrior's spirit will press on in Aya's defense. His battle may have been lost, but he will see us win the war.
But enough of this. There is much you both need to know. You have been branded as traitors by Aldaris and the Conclave. Even now they seek to arrest you and execute the Dark Templar of Zeratul.
Phoenix offers us a briefing on the state of the Conclave since our departure, confirming that Judicator Aldaris is leading an inquisition to arrest us for heresy and execute the Dark Templar prelate, Zeratul. His manhunt has completely consumed him, and he has become blind to Aya's suffering. The Zerg have overrun our once shining homeworld, and in response, Aldaris and the Conclave have become tyrannical, attempting to exercise absolute control over the remaining population in the name of their own survival. This is the ultimate end of an institution so lost in pursuing its past that it has lost all sense of its present. They obsess over the civil wars of Protoss history, the aeon of strife begun when the Protoss separated themselves from the presence of the Xel'Naga, which ended with them founding the Kala and establishing the psionic link between all Protoss, and the discord taking place 1,000 years ago when the Dark Templar escaped Ire after the legendary Templar Adun sacrificed himself to stop their Kali pursuers. We stand now at the precipice of a third civil war, and Phoenix is ready to fight that war with us to the very end.
I never believed that they would go so far. In the face of total annihilation, they still cling to their failing traditions.
Yes, and that makes them all the more dangerous. They hunt you even now, Tassadar. And though I damn myself by doing so, I shall stand by you till the end.
In Taro Adun, noble Phoenix. Executor, it seems that if our world is to live, we must protect the Dark Templar from our own brethren. Although it pains me greatly, not even the Conclave shall stand in our way.
The moment we land on the surface of Ire, Aldaris announces that we are under arrest and to be made to stand trial. Tassadar would like to see him try, telling Aldaris and his Conclave supplicants exactly where they can stick it. It's on.
Executor, you and the traitor Tassadar are to cease your resistance and surrender yourselves to the judgment of the Conclave. We will take the outlaw Zeratul into custody and deal with him as is written by the Kala's law.
Flee back to your masters, Aldaris, and huddle with them in darkness. For your actions shall set us all unto the Zerg.
Aldaris' forces immediately descend upon us, and we make a full retreat to Phoenix's stronghold, a base surrounded by high walls upon a defensible plateau. These battlements will prove vital to our defense as the Conclave has all the resources of the Protoss military mobilized in service of our destruction. This fight will be our most dangerous yet, and all the more glorious for it. A small fortune comes to us, as Phoenix's stronghold contains an observatory, enabling us to produce a key Protoss scouting unit from the robotics facility, the Observer.
I sense a soul in search of answers.
It sounds like a huge, gargantuan, swollen, bloated mushroom. One small step for man, one giant. Stop poking me! In the age of chaos, that planet predominates. Warcraft 2, jetzt als exklusive Edition mit dem Expansion Set, 4 Postern und Zauberlehren.
This little guy has a permanent stealth shield, anti-stealth capabilities, and can be upgraded with faster movement and an extensive range of vision. Our tactical ability can excel to new heights with the abundance of intel the Observer can provide. In addition to the Observer, we have yet more allies within our ranks. Phoenix in his Dragoon form, Zeratul, and a host of Dark Templar with blades ready.
I'm waiting. Nera Sculio. Zera Sculida. Your taunts are ill-advised, Templar. Do not provoke me to violence. You could no more evade my wrath than you could your own shadow.
The Dark Templar, like the Observer, are permanently cloaked and are able to dispatch key targets behind enemy lines with their deadly side blades. Their only weakness is their fragility compared to the other Protoss warriors. Except Zeratul, who is a friggin' boss and does so much damage, it is insane.
Kas Narada. You address me. Your orders, Templar. You have persecuted us for generations, and now you beg us to aid you? We will do what we must. But we do it for Io, not you.
We set out to the battlefield laid before us, and while the Conclave attacks us every step of the way, we are able to get an accurate read of the surrounding area.
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
We direct our forces to a generous mineral cache eastward and begin amassing our troops to strike at the first Conclave base. A fortification across the water threatens our resource outpost, but the bridges leading there make for bloody choke points sure to butcher our forces, especially with the Conclave Arbiters able to stasis lock our forces. We opt instead to strike the Conclave base on the other side of the map, safely nestled in some ruins to the southwest.
My life for ire! My life for ire! My life for ire! Warriors have engaged the enemy. Your warriors have engaged the enemy. My life for ire! Under attack! Your warriors have engaged the enemy. Upgrade complete. Shields. Contact. What now calls? I have made focus. Awaiting Galaxos, Mitora, Isoratsu. The warriors have engaged the enemy.
While it still takes a heavy toll on our forces, we are able to rout them from this area. Once we have our forward operating base set up, we warp in reinforcements and begin our assault deep into the heart of the Conclave.
Input command. Contact. We burn. Awaiting command. Standing by. Locus acknowledged. Standing by. I am needed. Awaiting command. The warriors have engaged the enemy. Upgrade complete. Standing by. Your warriors have engaged the enemy. Upgrade complete. What now calls? We are under attack.
Our victory condition for this mission is somewhat vague, but the day is one when either the red or the orange Protoss forces have 0 nexuses remaining. While the game does not show the totality of what is happening, the unfolding battle marks a momentous moment in all of Protoss history. In the course of this mission, Tassadar puts nearly every council member of the Conclave to the sword, and the fortress city of Korshakal, a crown jewel of Ire and the Conclave's seat of power, is completely destroyed. Once Korshakal is brought to its knees, signaling our dominance over the battle, Tassadar calls a ceasefire. His spirit has been shaken in the wake of all this bloodshed. His conscience cannot abide watching his own people butcher themselves while the Zerg are consuming the planet whole.
The warriors have engaged the enemy.
Eldaris, this madness must stop. The sight of my brethren slaughtering one another is more than I can stand. Though I fear you would doom us all, Eldaris, I surrender myself to the Conclave. End Taro Adun, Executor. Don't give up the fight.
If it will end the fighting, Tassadar will submit himself to the remaining Conclave members.
Tassadar of the Templar, by your actions you have severed yourself from the mercy of your brethren. You refused to destroy the Terran worlds as was commanded. You have questioned time and time again the sacred will of the Conclave, and you have abandoned your home world in its darkest hour. Most grievous of all is that you have allied yourself with the blasphemous Dark Ones, and learned to utilize their profane powers in tandem with our own. What say you, O fallen Templar?
Eldaris, I submit myself to the Conclave's judgment. But know this, given the same choices again, I would surely have made them. I have sacrificed all that our world might live. I have sullied my honor. I have discarded my rank and standing. I have even broken our most ancient traditions. But never think that I would for one moment regret my actions. For I am Templar, and above all else, I have sworn to protect our homeworld till the end.
We escape the battlefield with Phoenix at our side, and in the chaos of this unexpected turn, the Dark Templar retreat to the shadows. Without Tassadar, the war cannot be won. His sacrifice, however selfless, could seal the fate of all Protoss on Ire. Aboard the carrier ship Gantrathor, a dark cloud weighs heavy on our shoulders as we begin planning the next stage of our campaign. Tassadar's surrender to the Conclave was a blow to our cause none could have expected, leaving only Phoenix and ourselves to lead our forces out of the mess. Though we had the Conclave near defeat, losing Tassadar has meant confusion and desertion within our ever-dwindling army. Those to whom swore sole loyalty to Tassadar, such as the Dark Templar, have scattered, leaving us in a fragile state. Phoenix, however, remains as stalwart as ever in the face of this challenge. He proposes a bold new strategy.
Enfaro Adun, Executor. All seems lost now, but still we must fight on. We must find Tassadar and secure his release from the Judicator before they can execute him for treason. Without him, I fear there is no way to defeat the Zerg and their Overmind.
Even though Tassadar willingly submitted himself to Judicator Aldaris and the Conclave for trial, we are going to spring him from prison before judgment can be passed. The odds are against us here, but Phoenix is firm in reminding us that, without Tassadar, victory against the Overmind is impossible.
Zeratul and his Dark Templar have vanished, leaving us to fend for ourselves. I wonder if Tassadar was mistaken to have put his trust in them.
Since his surrender, Tassadar has been contained in a stasis prison, while the surviving members of the Conclave decide his fate. While a great many allied Protoss have left our ranks, there is one key ally we didn't lose. Jim motherfucking toast your ass, smoke grass, fill my belly with a tank of gas, Raynor. He, aboard his command ship, the Hyperion, is stationed in orbit right alongside the Gantrathor, and he and his men are ready to roll.
We are receiving a transmission from Captain Raynor's command ship.
This is Raynor. I'd like to help if I can. Tassadar laid it on the line for me and my crew on Char. I'd like to repay the debt. Besides, I'm a long way from home, surrounded by hostile aliens. I've got to do something.
Then you shall, bold human. You shall.
For taking part in our quasi-crusade/revolution of the Protoss race, Jim is definitely a pretty cool cucumber. He has a debt to pay to Tassadar for the aid he gave him on Char when he was trying to escape Kerrigan's clutches. And after the treatment Raynor and his raiders went through at the hands of Arcturus Minsk, they're more than happy to have honorable allies like Tassadar and Phoenix at their side. Phoenix commends Jim's courage and welcomes him and his crew before giving us the order to depart. Once planetside, we commence operations by assessing the situation. Our initial base, located in a patch of ruins, has a choke point on either side of its perimeter, along with battlements along the walls, perfect for positioning dragoons to be placed as sentries. Both Phoenix and Raynor join in combat, and Phoenix secures us the build schematics for a new structure, the Fleet Beacon, allowing us to warp in the height of Protoss aerial superiority, the carrier.
Instructions. You look at us. Ishnu. Our enemies are legion. And still you procrastinate. Command or you will be relieved. This is not an idle threat.
These massive starships tout a substantial HP pool and a decent-sized plasma shield as a defensive complement. The carrier dominates the skies as a moving platform housing swarms of interceptors, expendable destroyer drones who overwhelm their foes in storms of fiery plasma death. Initially, the carrier can only house 4 interceptors, but after a quick upgrade, their carrying capacity is doubled. As a bonus, the fleet beacon finally opens up some much-needed upgrades for the scouts, increasing both their line of sight and their flight speed. Finally, these ships that have been with us since our 3rd mission have had their full potential unlocked. As we begin amounting a sizable store of resources, our scouts report our enemies have surrounded us with 2 separate bases guarding the nearest source of minerals and gas. With aggressive use of the Hyperion's Yamato gun, the photon cannons defending these bases are blown to pieces. Once that key opening is secured, we deploy a force of zealots, dragoons, and a few carriers to take out the meat of the base. Carriers are also fantastic for dealing with enemy Reavers, as their aerial bombardments from their interceptors seem to make the Reaver AI panic and run into a corner to hide. They stop attacking almost entirely, even with enemy infantry bearing down on them. With time, effort, and determination, the 2 bases flanking our own are turned to rubble, leaving us in control of about half of the battlefield. Yet the work is not done. The Conclave are located in their stronghold, set upon high ground, safe behind dummy-thick walls. While sending in a massive fleet to raise the base from above would probably do the job, such a costly battle could only secure us a Pyrrhic victory. Instead, we choose to blitz the stasis cell holding Tassadar prisoner. Raynor's Hyperion wields its long-range firepower to knock out the Conclave photon cannons, and when the Hyperion's energy is recharging, we keep the heat on their forces by tactically maneuvering our shuttles and Reavers through their air defenses. Several troops loaded onto shuttles, with a detachment of carriers for protection, are sent in as reinforcements. While our forces mobilize, the Conclave attempt to outflank us by diverting forces to move on our base. But they soon find their attacks ineffective in breaching our perimeter. No surprise to us, they face the grizzled veterans of our campaigns within the Caprulu sector, hardened warriors with unmatched zeal. Our zealots descend from their shuttle transports to press the attack, while our carriers provide support and fend off the Conclave's counterattacks. Our carriers are soon made the primary targets of their Arbiters, Scouts, and High Templars. One by one, they become either frozen in stasis or are blasted out of the sky with psionic storms and antimatter missiles. Raynor attempts to divert them off of the carriers and successfully Yamato guns one of the Arbiters before also being locked in stasis. However, this ends up working in our favor.
We have found Tassadar's stasis cell.
With our enemy's attention focused on our carriers, they have failed to deal with our ground forces, who proceed to rush Tassadar's stasis cell and smash it open to free our glorious leader. Our moment of victory, however, is short-lived. It's a trap! Once we free Tassadar, a veiled fleet hidden by Judicator Aldaris surrounds our forces.
I expected you to attempt to retrieve your hero. You will learn that the will of the Conclave is absolute. Make peace with Adun.
He declares that we will all die. But before he can make good on his threats, he gets ambushed in kind by none other than Zeratul, leading his host of Dark Templar brethren.
Stay thy hand, Judicator. The stewards of Tassadar shall not fall while the Dark Templar live. Call off your guards and stand aside, and you may yet live to see another moonrise.
Their honor only matched by their cunning, Zeratul explains they had not abandoned us, but were merely waiting in the shadows for the perfect time to strike. Zeratul offers Aldaris mercy, but Aldaris spits on his offer and threatens once again that he will purge the Dark Templar.
I will not be addressed so by one so devoid of the Kala's light. You and your vile brethren shall die with these traitors.
Are you truly so blinded by your vaunted religion that you cannot see the fall ahead of you? Your conclave believes that they are winning this war, but all they have succeeded in doing is helping the Overmind to win.
Zeratul, in a show of true composure, ignores his violent intentions and tries to reason with Aldaris, explaining the truth underlying this war against the Zerg.
What could you possibly know about our designs, blasphemer?
You speak of knowledge, Judicator. You speak of experience. I have journeyed through the darkness between the most distant stars. I have beheld the births of negative sounds and borne witness to the entropy of entire realities. Unto my experience, Aldaris, all that you have built here on Iora is but a fleeting dream. A dream from which your precious conclave shall awaken, finding themselves drowned in a greater nightmare.
We shall see.
While we secure our escape from the Conclave and Aldaris' Inquisition, we are left wondering if we will face them again. For the Protoss to survive the Zerg menace, this war between brothers must end. Ayer's fate depends on it. As our flagship returns safely to low orbit over Ayer, Tassadar offers us his gratitude for rescuing him, holding on to only the faintest of hope of survival. But now, Tassadar returns to our mission with renewed faith, ready to face our next battle.
In Taro Adun, Executor. My gratitude to you for having secured my release knows no bounds. By all the gods, we may win yet. The time has come to let loose the fury of the Dark Templar. Zeratul, perhaps the time has come to tell our friends of the foe we face.
Indeed.
With both Tassadar and Zeratul on our side, the Overmind's days are numbered. Zeratul reminds us on the battle in which he struck down the Cerebrid Zaz, when he was able to briefly connect to the Overmind's consciousness. It was in that moment that he learned of the Zerg's true history.
When I slew the Cerebrid on Char, I touched briefly with the essence of the Overmind. In that instant, my mind was filled with its thoughts. And I tell you now, our worst fears have come true. The Zerg were indeed created by the ancient Zelnaga. the same beings that empowered us in our infancy. But the Overmind grew beyond their constraints, and has at last come to finish the experiments they began so long ago.
It was in that moment that he learned of the Zerg's true history. The Xel'Naga did in fact originate the Zerg after creating the Protoss. Just as the Protoss eventually emancipated themselves of the Xel'Naga's influence, so too did the Overmind develop its own sense of self upon maturity, and soon after claimed its own freedom. Through the Zerg swarm, the Overmind seeks to fulfill what it believes is the purpose of its existence, to assimilate the essence of the Protoss, and in doing so, become perfect.
So you see, my friends, we fight not only to save Ire, but all creation. If we fall to the Zerg, then the Overmind will run rampant throughout the stars, consuming all sentience, all life. It is up to us to put an end to this madness, once and for all.
Once the Overmind consumes the Protoss, Tassadar explains, it will then continue to consume all life in the galaxy. No planet will be safe from the Overmind's ceaseless hunger. No species spared from the innumerable masses of the swarm. This fight is not just for Ire, but for the continued existence of life as we know it.
Our forces shall engage the primary Zerg hive clusters in an attempt to weaken their defenses. Once their numbers have thinned out, Zeratul and his companions can infiltrate the clusters and assassinate the Cerebrates. Adun willing, the Cerebrates' deaths will distract the Overmind long enough for us to assault it directly.
Our plan, with Phoenix commanding our forces alongside us, will be a frontal assault on one of the largest hive clusters adjacent to the Overmind's lair. Pushing through their numbers with the zealous strength of our people, we will open a path for Zeratul to eliminate the Cerebrates controlling this cluster. This infiltration deep into Zerg territory will no doubt throw the swarm into a state of chaos. If killing Zaz was enough to give the Overmind pause, striking down 2 Cerebrates should give our main force an opportunity to assault the Overmind's hive. Adun be with us. Our infiltration into the enemy's perimeter begins with a new unit in our strike force, the Arbiter.
Galadul, Duras, we feel your presence. We are vigilant. We sense a soul in search of answers. Do you seek knowledge of time travel? We'll take that as a yes. And now for your first lesson. Do you seek knowledge of time travel?
The final piece of the Protoss fleet, suitable for what could very well be our final mission. This flying spellcaster deploys a constant stealth field to any units in its vicinity, an ability we ourselves have been forced to contend with in prior battles, and features 2 unique abilities to outwit our foes. The stasis field, which locks down enemy units in an energy field, excellent for nullifying an enemy attack by shutting down a sizable chunk of their forces. And the recall ability, which enables mass teleportation of any unit in a 5x5 space from anywhere on the map to directly under the Arbiter. When utilized in conjunction with the High Templar's hallucination ability, you have a combo that's been a key tactic of numerous competitive Protoss strategies, and for good reason. After our initial setup, we find 2 ideal base locations which eventually become the core of our forward operating position. Before deploying our photon cannons to defend our base's vanguard, we take advantage of the Arbiter's stealth ability to keep our units hidden while ambushing Zerg scouting parties investigating the area. Our first major encounter is with the Tiamat brood, under command of Cerebrate Dagoth. While Dagoth's death would be a brutal blow to the Overmind's dominion, Dagoth himself is not on this battlefield, serving merely as an initial defense for his fellow Cerebrates with an extension of his forces. Our stealth-based strategy is a cunning move early on in the mission, but soon Dagoth gets wise to our schemes. He deploys a Defiler to lay waste to our Arbiter's position with a virulent plague. Phoenix, unfortunately, takes the brunt of the Defiler's plague and is rushed to the back lines to recover. With Phoenix out of action this early, our strategy going forward will need to be adjusted to adapt. We deploy another battery of cannons and troops to our front lines just in time to keep the swarm at bay. Once we secure some observers in our forces, we begin slowly taking ground across the battlefield, taking care to not get ambushed while methodically picking apart their forces from the high ground. Soon, construction begins on a grand carrier fleet, and as a few hit the skies, they begin pushing the creep ever backwards towards the Zerg Hive cluster.
Warriors have engaged the enemy.
With these carriers above, and a Zealot Arbiter combo below, we repel Dagoth's forces from the area so that we may concentrate our firepower on the remaining bases. One of the Zerg clusters under assault belongs to the Grendel brood, who is brown in appearance and is commanded by an unnamed Cerebrate. While their commander is unknown to us, this brood has been around since the beginning of the Zerg's invasion of the Caprulu sector, even fighting against the Cerberus Recon Squad alongside the Garm brood when they first touched down on Chao Sara. The second hive cluster belongs to a brood well known to us, the Balrog brood, clad in their distinct, armored white chitinous carapaces. The stage is set for a rematch between Phoenix and Cerebrate Gorn, but this time we have a secret weapon. Zera frickin' ass-kickin' tool. After witnessing our warriors fall to the Zerg Queen's devastating parasite ability, we deploy a force of Archons to the battlefield, as they are immune to the Queen's parasitic attacks. With patience and a righteous zeal within, our mightiest warriors charge northward, storming Gorn's main hive cluster.
Upgrade complete. Your warriors have engaged the enemy. Upgrade complete. Your warriors have engaged the enemy. Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
Your orders, Templar.
Once the way is clear, Zeratul rushes forward and puts an end to the biggest thorn in our side since we became Executor. The biggest thorn, of course, not including Judicator Aldaris. At last, Cerebrate Gorn is dead. The enemy falls into a full retreat, trembling before the combined might of our stealth carriers, dragoons, and archons.
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
The Grendel Brood's tech structures are soon devastated by our blitz attack from the remains of Gorn's base. While they desperately scramble to fend us off, Zeratul once again emerges from the shadows and strikes down the second Cerebrate. Another devastating blow to the Overmind and its ever-weakening control over the Zerg swarm. More damage has been done against the Zerg in this one attack than all of our battles put together. The time for our final battle is now. Ire will prevail. Entaro Adun. With two Cerebrates out of action, the way has been made clear. In the past, when Zeratul slew Zaz, the Overmind fell into a comatose state to recover, and has now entered into a similar hibernative state. With his defenses lowered, our forces can safely gather outside the Overmind's lair.
Executor, our plan worked perfectly. The Zerg defenses are broken, and the way to the Overmind is laid bare. The time for our stand has come.
Zeratul has no doubt wounded the Overmind, but it is still protected by two of its most capable Cerebrates. Cerebrates Dagoth and Erich, in command of the Tiamat and Jormungand broods. They will defend their father, in hopes to protect it long enough to recover and push back our forces. Tassadar takes a moment to reflect on our recent battles and the tribulations we have faced.
Indeed. My friends, this is our final hour. Not all of us may survive the coming conflict. Yet, death may be a blessing should we fail here. We seek now to destroy a foe that has ravaged its way across the universe, consuming all in its path.
This is our only chance to save Ire. No, the galaxy, from the ceaseless hunger of the Overmind. If we fall here, then we would be the lucky ones, granted the mercy of a swift death, instead of witnessing the horrors which await in the wake of a Zerg victory. Millennia have led up to this moment. The nightmare of the Zerg swarm pitted against the fathomless potential of the Protoss, meeting here for their final stand. Estranged children of the Xel'Naga, fated to duel for their survival in this epic final battle.
And now, it has reached the end of its long journey. The Overmind has come to destroy all that we hold dear and assimilate us into itself. And I say to thee, this shall not come to pass. Ire shall not fall. Executor, I stand ready.
As do I.
After calming his mind and steeling his resolve, Tassadar stands ready to face this challenge head-on. He blesses us with words of courage, declaring us his dearest friends and strongest allies. Zeratul whispers with approval, He is with us, ready for whatever may come. Phoenix, while still recovering from the Defiler's plague in our last battle, stays in our reserve, but we know his fiery spirit is with us in the heat of combat. One unexpected ally yet stands at our side, respected for his resourcefulness and valor. Jim Raynor, only a man, but who has become a legend, fighting through this drama since its beginning. He's borne witness to the rise of the Swarm in Terran space, toppled the oligarchy that was the Terran Confederacy, and, tragically, brought Emperor Minsk to his own seat of power. He's even seen the birth of the Queen of Blades firsthand and survived to tell the tale, and now stands as our comrade in the Third Protoss Civil War. Truly, Jim Raynor is an ally not to be underestimated.
Well, I guess all I have left is to see this through. The Zerg have taken everything from me. My home, my family, my friends. I know that nothing I do can bring those things back, but I'll be damned if I just sit on my hands and wait for the end. I want a piece of them, all right. I'm in.
Then let our actions speak for us. For Adun. For Ire.
For Adun and for Ire indeed. Well said, Tassadar. As we step forth to face what could be our final battle, we receive a hailing signal from the remaining Conclave survivors. Aldaris, in a rare display of humility, accepts that the path we walked was true, and had they seen the error of their ways sooner, perhaps we could have saved many more lives along the way. Nevertheless, rescinding our exile and admitting that we are, in fact, the shining example for all Protoss in an encouraging display of warmth. Thank you, Aldaris.
Executor, Tassadar, this comes too late to you, but the Conclave has witnessed your defeat of the Cerebrate. They know now that they cannot deny the necessity or the valiancy of your actions. We sought to punish you, while it was we who were in error. You represent what is greatest in us all, and all our hopes go with you. Entaro Adun, brave sons of Ire.
Wow. Does that mean they're going to send some backup for us?
For the first and only time in the Starcraft campaign, we are given command of two separate races. Raynor and his forces to the northwest, along with Tassadar and Zeratul's forces to the southeast. While the Overmind's exact location is unknown, we can surmise that it is located near the center of the battlefield. Our Protoss forces have an abundance of Vespian gas, but are placed in a rather precarious location. It cannot be well defended without expanding to the high ground. The Terran location, meanwhile, is laden with minerals, and while it does have some nicely defended choke points to the east side, the south side of the base is completely exposed. We focus our efforts in building up our base defenses, as Dagoth will no doubt be as vicious as ever in protecting his bedridden papa. For the first time, we are given command of the mighty Gantrathor carrier, with Tassadar at its helm. The interceptors this carrier deploys are the same strength as normal interceptors, but its plasma shielding and robust health pool, a whopping combination of 1,300 total health and shielding, make Gantrathor the tankiest unit we have ever controlled, putting Raynor's Hyperion battlecruiser to shame. We establish our forces well, and once we feel comfortable with some scouting, we begin seeking the additional resources necessary for funding the insane cost of constructing two separate armies. We find a rather defensible mineral site north of our Protoss base. We take advantage of its choke points and set up a secure blockade on the north side of our base.
Thus I serve. For Adun. We are under thus I serve.
We continue scouting out more resource locations, opting to have the Protoss build at these sites instead of the Terran due to their automated defense systems. Soon after our forces leave the Protoss base, we are attacked by a small group of Mutalisks and Ultralisks, who are pushed back by Tassadar and Zeratul without issue.
We are under attack.
How may I help? Yes, Executor?
Upgrade complete.
The attack did, however, destroy all of our photon cannons protecting this area, and before we can catch our breath to warp in replacements, another attack, this time a massive wave of Ultralisks and Guardians, pressed the assault.
We are under attack.
Upgrade complete.
We are under attack.
For Adun.
Zeratul faces these monstrous foes head-on, giving us precious time to warp in our replacement cannons. If it were not for Zeratul's stealth capabilities, he would surely have fallen. As our observers putt around the battlefield, locating more potential expansion areas, we decide it's time to go on the offensive. Raynor and his men position themselves to a plateau overlooking one of Dagoth's resource bases, and quickly deploy some siege tanks in the area.
Oh yeah, this should be good. Let's move. Raynor here. Go ahead. Acknowledged you.
With a squad of Marines protecting the tanks and a ghost dropping a quick nuke, Raynor's raiders quickly rout this base and begin assaulting enemy territory.
I'm here.
Successful.
I'm all over it. This should be good. This should be good. Oh yeah. Destination. Go, go, go. Raynor here. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Delighted to, sir. Absolutely. Delighted to, sir. Go ahead. Always online. Channel open.
The warriors have engaged the enemy.
Zerg begin pouring out of all sides to push us away from the sleeping Overmind. We seize the moment and initiate a flanking maneuver to the southeast with our Protoss forces. Despite our fewer numbers, we make a sizable dent to the enemy forces with our modest fleet and begin wiping out more of Dagoth's bases.
Warriors have engaged the enemy. Upgrade complete.
For Adun. Turret alarm.
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
Both of our armies whittle down Dagoth's forces, but Cerebrit Erich mounts a counterattack, unleashing his Ultralisks and Hydralisks upon us.
The enemy. Warriors have engaged the enemy.
This attack, however, is for naught. We already had reinforcements on the way. Tassadar and a complement of carriers and dragoons sliced through the south portion of the Cerebrit Aurochs base, eventually meeting up with Raynor and his forces.
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
You want a piece of me, boy? Raynor here.
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
Orders, sir!
Our Marines have dwindled in number, but now we have a couple more battle cruisers to support Raynor. And at last, we reach the Overmind and commence filling its hide with lead.
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
This should be good.
I hear you. Of course. Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
What few Zerg forces remain rush our soldiers in desperation and are soon blasted to bloody pulp, just like their precious Overmind. With its body savaged into a weakened husk, Tassadar reminds us that while we have weakened this great foe, we have done so at heavy cost to our own forces. And unlike us, the Overmind can probably regenerate. Solemnly, Tassadar comes up with a final plan, which will hopefully put an end to the Overmind, once and for all.
Executor, the Overmind has been weakened. I fear we have sustained severe damage ourselves. I will steer the Gantrathor into a collision course with the Overmind. If I can channel enough of the Dark Templar's energy through the hull of the Gantrathor, I should be able to bring swift death to the accursed abomination. Remember us, Executor. Remember what was done here today. May Adun watch over you.
As the chaotic, swirling energies subsided, a heavy silence settled over the battlefields of Ire. Due to Tassadar's noble sacrifice, the Overmind was now dead, and the Zerg swarms were scattered and broken. But as the heroes surveyed their once glorious homeland, they realized that their victory had cost them all but their lives. Ire was left nothing more than a smoldering ruin. Those few Protoss who survived the final battle could only wonder what the future would hold for their race. And far away, on the distant planet Char, Kerrigan, the self-styled Queen of Blades, knew that the time of her ascension was at hand.